A couple of the 3D physical world benevolent factions mentioned here are Solar Warden, which is said to be a white hat branch of the Navy that has established its own secret space program. Ancient astronauts, such as those mentioned in Ancient Aliens, which may have seeded life on this planet originally before other invading extraterrestrials came in and created systems of enslavement. And while systems of hierarchy and control may seem somewhat unfair in light of the system that has been established on Earth, there is such a thing as natural hierarchy and the hierarchy of different advanced levels of forms. This is shown a little bit on the right of the section here, where you see the progression of minerals to microbes, to plants, to fungi, to animals, to cetacea, which is essentially whales and dolphins, to mankind, that there is a hierarchy of intelligence here, that the whole liberal concept of everything being equal, we need equality in every division of society everywhere, it doesn't exactly make sense, because beings that are less advanced sometimes need guidance from more advanced beings in order to, successfully have a civilization. And that applies even beyond civilization into the natural world. And then hopefully mankind would be guided by angels and the Most High God, as opposed to demons, jinn, and archons. So we then get into the even higher benevolent hierarchy, which goes from sages to spirit guides, chohans to ascended masters, devas, prophets, and the logos. The universal benevolent military force is known as the Galactic Federation of Light, as well as many other titles that describe that benevolent security force of the galaxy and even the universe itself. There are laws governing the benevolent forces known as the Galactic Codex, many councils of light and tribunals at the highest level, which regulate space-time itself and may or may not decide to intervene when violations of universal law do occur. And our local branch of the Galactic Federation is said to be Ashtar Command, which is who I typically attempt to work with and channel when I'm in my own meditation and getting advice for diagrams such as this one. So above all of this is at last the angelic realm. And now I must preface this and say that this is strictly from a Christian conception. There's definitely overlap with the Jewish conception, and maybe some overlap with the Islamic conception as well. But when you get into these very, very high realms of higher dimensional beings, there is really no concrete authority that can say this is exactly how it is. And the Christian conception may differ somewhat from the Hindu conception or other religions as well. Egyptian pantheon, Sumerian pantheon. However, I do believe that over time, through multiple different prophets' visions and people going into deep meditation and thinking about these things and receiving information from the higher realms over centuries, that the Christian conception has been quite refined to be a decent reflection of what does actually exist in the higher realms. And so while there may be different systems of organizing these entities and different names for them, that this is a fairly solid way to structure what is actually going on in the higher realms as you get up closer and closer to the one true almighty supreme being, God. So in the Christian conception of the angelic realm, there are 9 choirs. And in the third tier, the lowest ones are angels, archangels, and principles. And then the second tier, powers, virtues, and dominions. And the third tier are thrones, cherubs, and seraphim. And of course, within Christian mythology and beyond, there are the archangels, who are the ones who serve and interact with humanity directly. And Lucifer was originally the highest archangel under God before he staged his rebellion. And under him, there were the other archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, Samuel, Haniel, Zaphkiel, Zadkiel, Raziel, and Metatron. And of course, this list may not be complete or fully comprehensive, but those are the main ones who have been recognized throughout both Christian and New Age thought and channeling. Tiny but critically important here is the Grail Stone, which is said in some mythologies to be the stone that fell from Lucifer's crown during the war in heaven. and it is the Grail Stone that is bestowed to the Rex Mundi on planet Earth to be the ruler of planet Earth. The Grail Stone potentially being a communication device between the ruler of Earth and, depending on your worldview, God or Satan Lucifer. So it is said that whoever controls the Grail controls the world. And that has really been the motivating ethos of the Illuminati and the priesthoods and the kingships throughout all these centuries of our civilization. So finally, we reach the very top here, the prime, almighty, supreme being, which in the Christian Judeo-conception is given the name Yahweh, which means I am that I am. In the Gnostic conception, this is called the supreme unknowable being, and he is said to exist as a trinity of forms between the God, the Son of God, and the Holy Spirit, or God's aura. This is said to be the supreme God of all forms, as well as concepts and institutions, from the sun to the moon, the earth to the sky, the storm, the sea, war, justice, protection, and wisdom. It's all gods rolled into one, which again was first conceived of by Akhenaten when he created Atenism, and has been adapted by the Zoroastrians, the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. Of the angelic realms, we say this in the diagram's essays on the back. God is the unknowable supreme being, one that the lower gods claim to be but are not. God is the light, he who giveth life, for Satan is that which taketh away. God inhabits all life forms and minerals in his kingdom at all times. In God's audience are high orders of beings composed of eyes, tetramorphic heads, and layers of feathered wings. Wheels within wheels spin in his presence, opening portals into all timelines for God to see. This is an incomprehensible realm, many orders of dimension higher than that which you experience in the 3D. Now, I took great painstaking care in this diagram. I spent a whole day rendering each of these little icons for the seraphim, cherubim, and thrones, or oraphim, which you see here to the left and right of God. The seraphims usually being depicted as heads or eyeballs surrounded by wings. The cherubim, which were described in Ezekiel's vision, were entities with 4 wings and 4 heads, and cloven feet, the head of a human, the head of an ox, a lion, and an eagle. Now, some say that these are just analogies for astrological features. However, I like to take Ezekiel's vision literally, but who knows if it's actual entities out there that actually look like this, or if this is a symbol or a metaphor of something else. But then, of course, there's the oraphim as well, which are wheels within wheels, covered by eyes in the account of Ezekiel. And to me, that brings to mind the idea of some form of a stargate is what I see that as. And so I depict those flying around. They also look somewhat like what our scientists call atoms with their, spinning fields of electrons. So whatever the Bible meant by that is still up for interpretation. But that is what Christians are said to believe. And this is, of course, the Christian conception which I've presented here. So now you may be wondering, what is this crazy chessboard world that I have created surrounding the highest level of this power pyramid? Well, I discussed this in my video about 5D chess a little more than a year ago. But essentially, the chessboard world is a metaphor, more or less, of the dimension that our world is built inside of. The entire power structure is built with the same basic pieces as a chessboard. The king, the queen, bishops, knights, rooks, and pawns. Is our reality simply a game of 5D chess to beings in higher realms looking for entertainment? What does the king who has everything do to occupy himself and ensure his own longevity? He builds checkerboards, starts battles, and delves deeper into magic and the art of illusion. Who ranks above the king? It is he who is playing the game himself. If our world is a simulation projected by means of advanced technology, there would still necessarily be a world beyond that, where such technology was created. There is dark and light on all levels of the hyperdimensional time cube prism. Our world at present is transitioning from being dark dominated for the past several thousand years since Atlantis to being light dominated for an extended period. A golden age is upon us, with new leaders, not rulers, anointed by God, and the chess master, Satan, and his minions will be relegated back to their own simulation world.